President Trump addresses Congress to a joint session for more than 90 minutes, one of the longest joint session of Congress speeches in history. It's not technically a State of the Union, but they treated it as it is, complete with a rebuttal. So we are going to talk about highlights of the speech, which I have watched in full. I've seen it all. I have some praises and I have some criticisms of it, and we will talk about all of those. Plus, the rebuttal, which I thought was actually going to be a very, very good speech for about 3 minutes. And we'll watch those 3 minutes and talk about some of the concerns that I have with that. In other news, speaking of the title card of today's stream today, Volodymyr Zelensky comes to the White House for a joint press conference in which the press was there asking questions, and a scene erupted that some people are saying was staged, some people were saying is real, some people say show that the Trump administration has failed. Again, I've watched the entire scene. I have some criticisms of it, and I have some praises of it as well for both sides as we go. So we'll talk about what happened with that, where that went, and the final 10 minutes that everyone seems to be talking about. Furthermore, the tariff war, it has begun. Tariffs went into place against China, Canada, and Mexico, and then went away for Canada and Mexico almost immediately, at least only for 31 days. We'll talk about what's happening with this, where this goes, and what the media is trying to say about this as they go. And Ben Shapiro has launched an effort to get George Floyd's killer, not fentanyl, Chauvin, pardoned. I want to talk about why this is a bad idea, and even why I think it's a bad idea for him to go back on appeal. And I've made my thoughts about this when they found the new evidence, but I'm going to go a bit above and beyond with what's going on with that and where we go with that. It is going to be all of this and more over here on Contemporary. So strap yourselves in for a special Thursday night session. Find some friends, tell some people, because this show grows by word of mouth, and chat, because that also helps us grow along. And Dad, I am the dog. Hound of hell, you cry. Devil on your back, I can never die. I'm J. Edgar, and this is Contemporary. I found video of one of the things that we're going to be talking about on the title card was up, so I'm going to go and put that back into the stack so we can watch the video. We're going to watch Benny Boy. Aren't you excited? We're going to get to hear him talk in an nasally voice very fast, folks, okay? I talk very fast because I have a lot of things to say, and most of them don't matter, but I talk very fast, and you have to just try to keep up. Try to keep up, okay, gang? That's what we're going to do here right now. Yeah, we're going to listen to that. And I am not sorry either. I am going to put you through that. But that's going to be at the bottom of the show. So if you're listening on the audio platform, you're not going to have to see the video. I do hope you stick around with me. It's going to be probably close to about 9 or so when we get to this. But we do have a bunch to go over here today. I thought about when unforeseen circumstances popped up, skipping out on the week, and then I listened to the joint session of Congress speech, and I said, no, we can't combine that with all the other stupid shit that happens next week, because, I mean, ever since January 20, ever since November, the first Tuesday in November, it has just been a wall of stupid shit. And I'm here for it all. Mostly because I love to talk about it and love to go on with this, and I love to see what it is that you guys chat about. So we've got a lot to go over there today, so I think we'll dive right into it in just a moment. A couple things on the selling of the wares. Does not at this point look like there's going to be an Ed Talk coming up this week. I put some feelers out to a guest. I've got no response. So I'm going to hold off on the feelers. I do have something in mind for 2 weeks from now, and it's going to be a big one, and it's probably going to be an emotional one too, and then I'm going to put some other feelers out for a different kind of guest as well. I think a few of you know what's coming off of this one because it's something I've been looking forward ever since we started doing this new project, so I very much I'm looking forward to it. I'm kind of curious to see where the conversation goes. And this person knows that he can't get away without going through one thing that I'm looking for to talk about. So that's all I'm going to leave it at this point here, but we got a lot to go over here today. Do check out the audio platform tomorrow for both this episode, hopefully, along with the episode with my good friend John, who sat down, who's got some new stuff coming out, probably one of my best friends, a person who has definitely come out and shaped the way that this program went, shaped the way that my channels went, and shaped the way some of my life has gone as well. We had a great 3-hour conversation. That's right, we hit the 3-hour mark with my buddy John, partially because he kept getting up to go to the bathroom, and that's going to get edited out. But we hit the 3-hour mark. It was a great time. It was a great conversation. The lovely Palm sat in and helped do the lookup thing again. That's one thing we got to stop doing when I schedule this stuff, is we can't just keep doing this on my nights after work, because wow, there's some rushing going on there too. But I try to schedule around other people too. It's pre-recorded, so there's that. But go check that out. Go check out Overruled with Katie Zed every Sunday. Go check out The Daily Ignoramus. It's a great time. He's a great streamer. I don't get to listen to him anymore, unfortunately, except for on the replay because, well, I'm customer facing now, so I really can't sit back and listen to The Daily Ignoramus while it's going, but it's definitely one to listen to off to the side. And what do we have? What are we counting? Looks like we're talking about
whether you're tinkering in your
Why do we have a fucking commercial? Go away. Fuck off. Yeah, we're moving this window over to Brave 2, it looks like. I still have all my old setup and work links set up in a Chrome window over on my left screen, but if they're going to start just cutting to commercial in the middle of live stream over there, which this is the first time they've done it while I'm on live stream, then yeah, Brave has an integral ad blocker, so we're not going to deal with that shit anymore. Chrome is going to be gone because they fucked up. It's going to take a little bit of work to get everything switched over to the new Brave window, but that's work that now we have to do. That pisses me off a lot. Palm says, every time that Ed covers Trump, we should have a counter for every time Trump says one of his signature catchphrases, or the number of times Ed does his impressions. Situation change. Yeah, I do want to do a little bit more with the lighting, but I want to get decorated in here first. I want to get a kind of a rustic feel going on. We've got some ideas. I think we're going to go with reclaimed fence wood. Just drill it up into the studs on the wall and give it a log cabin look. Maybe get some neon lights up in there and some low light. I think it's going to look cool. Just with the vision that I have here. I'm definitely excited for that. What are we shaming on? I should see if there's a way that we can set the Nightbot up for that. I haven't been into the Nightbot for a while, but yeah, I think we can do that. They can do counters and stuff, because they do death counters for gamers. So there's probably a way. I'll probably have to sit down and figure that out, but regardless, let's get into the news of the day. Let's get started. News scene. Bring that up. Talk about it more on the bottom of the show with things I like and things that I hate, but I'm in the market for new monitors now. See, here's the other fun part of this. My left screen, which is a 24-inch TV, gave out. The right-hand one, which is the same brand, is still going, which is good. Because they were both insignias. They were both stuff that I got on sale when I built my computer. And Palm had a 24-inch monitor laying around, but these middle screens are optimized for 768. They can go to 1080p, but it looks like shit when they go to 1080p. So they're optimized for 768. This one is optimized for 1080p. And I'm amazed by how much more I can get up on the screen. And how much more work I can do. So I know the intent of putting this monitor up here was to get me to save money and not spend money on a new screen. But now that I have 1080p over here, I want the other two to be 1080p. Actually, I want the other three because, hey, if I can hold 4 monitors, I might as well throw all 4 of them up. But yes, I would like them all 4 to be 1080p. So let's get the Rumble chat up here. Let's see what we got going on with that. Chat, because that helps your favorite streamer get moved up to the front page of everything. And all right, let's talk about the joint session of Congress. We're going to start with our friends today over at NPR. Remember, NPR. They need your money because the ad revenue is next to nil. Therefore, they need our money, comrade, to make sure that they can continue to tell you that Trump's joint session of Congress speech was really a call to Nazi propaganda and to start the camps that help you focus on the things that you're looking to focus on against all of his political enemies. And if you don't donate, then people might actually see what he's about instead of the propaganda that NPR would like you to see. So hit that donate button. NPR is a never-printing reality. National Progressive Radio. Let's see what it is that they have to say. We are, of course, starting out the news today talking about the joint session of Congress speech that Trump gave. It was a 90-minute speech. I think a part of that was because they had to stop for Al Green getting his ass thrown out, which was hilarious, by the way. I was glad that I was able to go back and see that. I think they have video of it too, so if not, we'll go to the Daily Wire and see if we can find the Al Green getting out. Or I do have the link to the full speech up, and I know approximately where it happened. But it was a decent speech. I mean, teleprompter Trump is one of the better forms of Trump that we have out there. When he goes off script, he says stupid shit. And he does sometimes say stupid shit when he's on script too, but when he goes off script, he goes all over the place. He's meandering. He likes to compliment people that don't need to be complimented, and he likes to lose focus and get brought out into the weeds. But teleprompter Trump is chef's kiss is the way to say it. He is on point. He can hit the messages. He can raise and lower his inflection. He knows how to play on the emotion just with the tone of his voice, not necessarily the words. So this was one of the better speeches. None of the articles that I've looked at going into this have mentioned who wrote this particular speech. I don't think this was a Stephen Miller speech. Just the wording, the direction that everything was going, I don't believe that this was his. It was a good speech, though. If you have not listened to it, I will get a link into the Discord so you guys can go do the full 90-minute thing. It's worth a listen. We'll focus on some clips and some highlights, especially what the news media wants you to focus on, but it was definitely worth the watch. Palm has 3 more screens? Oh, okay. NPR does podcasts on budgeting. You should look them up. For streams, you should look them up and learn what saving money means. You gotta spend money to make money, though. But if I listened to an NPR podcast, I would have to listen to it like this. And I would probably fall asleep while I'm driving because of the way that they talk. It's calming. I wonder how many traffic accidents have been caused by people listening to NPR and just sort of drifting off as they go. Alright, let's talk about the longest joint address to Congress in recent history. This is from Elaine Moore. Trump's address to a joint session of Congress on Tuesday lasted for more than 90 minutes, the longest in at least 60 years. The president's remarks surpassed former President Clinton's State of Disunion in 2000, which came in at an hour and 28, according to the American Presidency Project, which tracks the lengths of each speech since 1964. Trump's timing includes several long pauses for rounds of applause, as well as a series of disruptions from Democrats in the audience. The first joint address a president delivers after being sworn in is not technically a State of the Union address, but the speeches have similar structure and both take place in the chamber of the House of Representatives. While Trump's remarks may have the longest duration in decades, other former presidents have produced speeches with higher word counts. Though it's become a commonplace for a presidential joint address to be televised, primetime events historically, many presidents sent in written addresses instead, which I'm not 100% opposed to going back to that either, by the way. I mean, it's nice to sit down and actually be able to listen to the speech given, the hope that comes out of it from the presidency, and especially the rebuttal, because you can definitely tell the direction that the off party wants to go because of the rebuttal, and you wouldn't get that with just a typed address that got sent to Congress and said, okay, here's our address, read it at your leisure. Let's see. The last president to submit a written address to was former President Carter in '81. Carter's final speech also holds the record for the address with the most words at 33,667. Preliminary numbers from the American Presidency Project estimate Trump's speech had a total of 9,831 words, one of the highest word counts among delivered speeches. So, overall, it was good. There were some highlights that went on, talking about just what was done in the first month of the presidency, month and a half of the presidency. Of course, I mean, this is, for Democrats, for Republicans, this is a propagandistic speech. This is them coming up and saying, I'm the greatest, I'm celebrating the fact that I won. Because of my administration, we're doing fantastic things. They don't typically go on to the problems. There were some lines talking about the problems because of the radical Democrats. There was some focus on Joe Biden that I didn't appreciate. I did appreciate the fact that the majority of the speech, though, was, this is what we've done, this is what we're doing going forward. Not a lot of, it's their fault, it's their fault, it's their fault. Obama, first term Obama, had a bit of a problem with this one. First term Obama was really, really bad about, well, my predecessor, he's the reason that you're suffering right now. I know that you don't have any money. The jobs aren't there. But it's all Bush's fault. It's my predecessor. He did, not me. Because I'm the best president there ever was. If you question that, you're a racist. You don't want to be a racist, dude. I don't think you want to be racist. So don't question that, okay? Let's look at some of the highlights. From CBS News, highlights from Trump's speech to a 2025 joint session of Congress. I hate these caps, I do. Get rid of that. Alright, here are the highlights. Trump's speech lasted 1 hour 40 minutes, the longest in at least 61 years. The president's speech lasted 1 hour and 40 minutes, including pauses for clapping, applause, and other reactions. Trump ends the speech. The golden age of America has just begun. The president ended his speech with an optimistic tone for the future. We're going to create the highest quality of life. Build the highest quality of life. Build the safest and wealthiest and healthiest and most vital communities anywhere in the world. We're going to conquer vast frontiers of science, and we're going to lead humanity into space and plant the American flag on planet Mars and even far beyond. And through it all, we're going to rediscover the unstoppable power of the American spirit, and we're going to renew the ultimate unlimited promise of the American dream. Every single day, we will stand up and we will fight for our country, our citizens believe in, and for the country our people deserve. My fellow Americans, get ready for an incredible future, because the golden age of America has only begun. It will be like nothing that's ever been seen before. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless America. Which, and again, I mean, this is par for the course for the new administration, especially if it's a non-incumbent or a non-consecutive incumbent in this particular case. When we sit down and we look into the fact that, yes, there were parts in the speech, as I mentioned, of this is what Obama did wrong, what Biden did wrong. Well, I guess that'd be what Obama did wrong too, but this is what Biden did wrong, this is why we struggled with this. But a lot of it is on a first joint congressional, joint chamber of Congress speech, rather. Or joint session of Congress speech, that's the word I'm looking for, Jesus Christ. Maybe I need to get some more sleep and not trip over my words so much. But that's a lot of what we get to. You elected me, so now everything's going to be fantastic, and I'm going to make life better for you, and I'm going to walk on water, and I mean, this is no different. It's the way that they've done. Trump honors the family of Corey Comparator. Yeah, that was a big one. Trump honored the family of Corey Comparator, the firefighter that was killed during the assassination attempt in Butler. He actually was talking about this when he was talking about bringing home a journalist who was sentenced to 14 years in prison in Russia as well. Yes, this journalist, he just happened to be born in a little place called Butler, Pennsylvania. You may have heard of it before. So, a little bit of a seamless transition and a little bit of, pat yourself on the back kind of thing. I did think, especially, the DeSantis bros, the Christian conservatives who think that because we're talking about IVF right now, that means that Trump is automatically the devil. I think a bunch of them were probably sitting there thinking to themselves, okay, I hope he gets struck by lightning when he said this part here. The president added he believes his life was saved in Butler that day for a very good reason. I was saved by God to make America great again. I believe that, he said, reiterating a line that he said in his inaugural address, which I think a lot of people were waiting for the lightning to come for that one. Trump says U.S. has apprehended a top terrorist responsible for the Kabul airport attack. Talking about the most embarrassing moment for the history of our country. Trump on Greenland. We're gonna get it. We're gonna get it one way or the other. Mr. Trump, who suggested using military force or coercion to gain control of Greenland, had a message for Denmark-owned territory. I also have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. We strongly support your right to determine your own future, and if you choose, we welcome you into the U.S. Which, I mean, I could sit back and make a one-off video talking about that, because that is a completely separate issue. And if we do start going to war over trying to take the territory, I guess I'm not on the Trump train, but yeah, I'm out on that one, because we don't need to be using violence. He does seem to be interested, though, in keeping Greenland to us away from Denmark, where it can be a protectorate of ours. And I mean, there are only a few 100,000 people there, because as big as it is, there's not a lot of usable or arable land. And yes, it does form, if there is any sort of Russian invasion, Chinese invasion, or something coming out of Europe, it serves as a very, very good stronghold to keep a military base in and keep our side of the ocean safe. But we can't go back and using our military to go back and say, okay, you're United States territory now. Government officials, get out. You can't do that either. The president asked Congress to fund a Golden Dome missile defense shield. So they want to go back and do an Iron Dome, but they want it gold because it's Trump. Not huge on that one, partially because I don't know that it would work. I mean, you could do one over some major cities like Chicago, DC, New York, places like that, but I mean, realistically, how do you get something like that to work over a country the size of ours? The reason it works in Israel is because Israel is the size of New Jersey. So, those are some highlights. Some of the highlights. Let's move on. Let's see what CNN wanted to cover on this one. Actually, I'm going to skip this one because this is also basically a live ticker on this one. No, you know what? Let's look at some of this one. I'm curious. I like this. The major themes of Trump's speech. Trump gave his first address, tracking the major themes, domestic policy 3231, which I like that idea because we need to focus more on what's going on here than trying to world police. I think that sets him apart from a Bush, perhaps. Immigration 1442, economy 1353, which, and those two can be lumped into domestic policy if you want to go back to. Foreign policy only clocked in at 537. Culture 635. I'm kind of glad for that too because, you know, we can sit and fight about the culture war when we're all rich. But we are not there. Looks like the Biden admin only got 2 minutes and 39 seconds, which again, that's good. That's a good thing. Analysis, which is op-ed, of course, Trump's big night, deepens America's bitter internal schisms. Modern America's political chasm has never looked so bleak. Trump's joint address to Congress on Tuesday adopted the customs of a familiar annual political observance, but they failed to bridge the chasm of misunderstanding and contempt cleaving the country down the middle. Whatever you think about that speech and what it did for that, whatever Alyssa Slotkin came out with and had written for her made it 10 times worse. Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States wrote the House Sergeant at Arms in his fabled refrain. It was one of the only normal events on a night that exemplified broken national unity as the president embarks on a second term that millions will believe will usher in a new American global age, and millions more fear will destroy the country that they love. Pennsylvania voters split on Trump's speech in CNN focus group. Again, you can make a poll say anything that you want. I'd like to see an aggregate of that. Fact check. Military recruitment began rising even before Trump was elected. I think that's part of seeing the writing on the wall, of course. CNN poll, Trump's address changed a few viewers' minds. Trump's address did little to change opinions of his policies among those who tuned in. In a survey conducted prior to the speech, 61% said they believed the policies would move the country in the right direction, with 38% saying they would take the country in the wrong direction. Afterward, the results shifted to 66% and 34% respectively. So, a few people changed out their minds after seeing this speech. I'd like to see results. I'm a bit results-oriented like that, but with taking the pride in what has been done so far, and, of course, being the person who just always wants to be famous and loved by all, to take pride in something like that means that he's going to want to go back and do some more of it again. Let's see. Reactions roll in after Trump's address to Congress. Polls show massive positive reception. A CNN poll of Americans who watched Trump's address to a joint session of Congress on Tuesday showed that a huge majority approved of the message. The poll found that 69% of speech watchers said they viewed the president's speech as at least somewhat positive, compared to just 31% who viewed the speech negatively. I'll talk to that in just a sec. Let's read a little bit more. Broken down further, 44% of the viewers said they had a very positive reaction, in addition to 25% who had a somewhat positive reaction. For those who disapproved, 15% said they saw the speech as somewhat negative, and 16% described it as very negative. Pollsters noted that speech watchers comprised a small portion of the U.S., however, and also noted that the small sample size of 431 respondents, the poll advertised a margin of error of 5.3%. Among the sample, 21% described themselves as Democrat, 44% described themselves as Republicans, and 35% described themselves as independents or members of another party, CNN noted. That's the important part, right there. That's what we need to focus on. And it's not uncommon, by any stretch of the imagination. When I was in my 20s, during the Obama years, I was going out with what I would consider a very, very religiously conservative girl, who came to that honestly. She got it directly from her parents. I mean, her dad had a sticker on the back window of his pickup that said, with the Obama symbol, "Nope, keep the change," on the back of that. This is the kind of the family that she had come out of before. And this was kind of where I was starting to get my political awakening, and I watched the Obama speeches. I watched every single State of the Union that Obama gave. I didn't agree with most of it, but at the time, a lot of people who were in the same position that I was, well, I guess I've never really been a Republican, but I considered myself one at the time, but I did not fit in with those people at all. But with that being said, we're sitting at the point where he just said, "It's Obama, I refuse to watch it." With Trump's first term, we got a lot of Democrats who said, "I'm boycotting this, don't watch it. You're only going to be fed a bunch of lies, don't even watch it. Just take away what we tell you to take away from it, but don't watch it." And a lot of people did and didn't. They're just getting what they want to hear from their favorite news outlet, mostly MSDNC or Vox when Vox still existed. Under the Biden presidency, a lot of the MAGA people just said it's worthless to sit back and watch. Although, under the Biden presidency, I think a lot of people watched the Biden speeches to see if they could have a drinking game when he fucked up. Which he did, at great length, whether you wanted him to or not. But again, now seeing this joint session of Congress speech, we heard calls of boycott. We heard calls of don't watch it. You heard calls of don't waste your time. He's just going to lie to you. So yes, I can see where a poll number like that would be skewed to say that they have a mostly positive opinion of him because they're taking the time to watch and they're not doing the boycott. You see where I'm going with this. So I'm not 100% surprised by these results, and I think that, like, realistically, if we did a better poll across the country, not just of viewers of approval, it would be a little bit closer split to the middle. Al Green was removed from the House floor, and we actually have video of this right at the top from NBC News. Al Green removed after disrupting Trump's speech. Green, who has called for the president's impeachment, was escorted out of the chamber during Trump's address to Congress. Let's watch.
Small business optimism saw its single largest 1-month gain ever recorded, a 41-point jump.
Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House and to cease any further disruptions. That's your warning. Members are engaging in willful and continuing breach of decorum, and the chair is prepared to direct the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order to the joint session. Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat. Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
The signs
Members
too, by
are
the way.
directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House. Mr. President, you continue.
All right, so that was Al Green getting removed for disrupting after the speech. Now, I'm not 100% thrilled with that because of how disruptions in the speech have been handled in the past, of course. We remember on numerous different states of the Union that Mr. Biden gave, where especially Boebert and Green were doing the same kind of disruptions, and they were allowed to stay into the chamber while they were doing so. They were instructed to bring order, and they did bring order. They weren't removed. And I don't recall, the one that stood out to me that they keep using the picture from, they did stop immediately when they were instructed to. But with that being said, we look at this now, and we see Al Green, doing the same thing, but now he's standing up and saying, "No, I won't sit down. I want this. I want that." So there is a difference to it, but it's a staged thing, and especially with Green, I've always suspected her to be a Democrat operative in disguise because when she gets on TV, when she gets on Timcast, she plays a caricature of what a Republican should be. I don't buy for a second that she is a Republican. I never have. I think she's a plant. I always have. The written part of this article is from Henry J. Gomez, Frank Thorpe V, and Scott Wong. Al Green was removed from the House chamber Tuesday night after he disrupted Trump's joint address to Congress. Green, who has long pushed to impeach Trump, and has again, by the way, after this. We should get an impeachment counter. See how many times they do it. Dating to his previous term in office, stood and shook his cane towards the president in the opening minutes of the speech. Yeah, it was only like 3 minutes into the speech, too, by the way. Other lawmakers cheered and booed Green, causing further chaos. On the House floor, as Trump paused, the uproar prompted the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, to read aloud from the House rules. Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House, which was not the intention of the House by any stretch of the imagination. Fuck, they were having fistfights on the floor of the House in the 18th century. After Green refused to sit and allow Trump to continue, Johnson called for the House Sergeant-at-Arms to remove him from the chamber. And of course, they chanted as Green was being escorted from the room. What did they chant? I happen to just have that as a sounder.
As we celebrate Pride on the
No, that's not the one. That's a different sounder. That's got a fucking commercial on it. Yeah, we're switching everything over at this point. That's got 2 commercials. You can fuck directly off with that. What did they say? What did they chant? It's classless, but that doesn't make it any less funny. Outside the chamber, Green told NBC News that as a person of conscience, he believes Trump has done things that I think we cannot allow to continue. Well, get your articles voted on then. It's the only way that you get something to change. There is a sergeant at arms is the person in charge of the security of Congress when it's in session, so yes. And that person does hold the rank of sergeant on the Capitol Police Force, if I remember correctly. This whole budget that he has is one that's going to cause Medicaid to be cut. And when he said he had a mandate, it triggered something. Yeah, you're triggered, all right. It really did, because he didn't have a mandate, and he doesn't have a mandate to cut health care from poor people, Green said. The chamber was filled with other signs of protest and pushback. Members of the Democratic Women's Caucus wore pink to protest Trump's policies on women and families. Other Democrats wore blue and yellow ties in support of the Ukraine. Also visible on some Democrat members, stickers accusing Elon Musk of stealing Social Security. Some Democrats held black paddles that read Save Medicaid, protect veterans, and Musk steals. Rep. Rashida Tlaib held a whiteboard that read, that is a lie. So, but again, engaging in, for the most part, the same behavior that Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert did the entire last term. So, I'm not going to get too angry about it because, A, there's nothing they can do about it, and B, it's funny, no matter what. NPR has a fact check, by the way. Because of course they do. I'm not even going to bother with NPR voice on this one. Just let's get right into it. Trump delivered an address to a joint session of Congress 6 weeks into his second term. Reporters from across NPR's newsroom fact-checked the address and offered context as the speech unfolded. Something they haven't done for the last 4 years, oddly enough. Unlawful border crossings. Within hours of taking the oath of office, I declared a national emergency on our southern border and deployed the U.S. military and border patrol to repel the invasion. As a result, illegal border crossings last month were by far the lowest ever recorded. Customs and Border Protections had 30,000 encounters with migrants attempting to cross U.S. borders illegally in January. The agency has not reported the numbers for February. However, Reuters reported last week the admin is on track to report about 8,500 arrests. CBP has been recording apprehensions since 25. In 35, there were only 11,000 apprehensions nationwide for the full year. During Biden's admin, unlawful crossings hit an all-time high in 22. CBP reported more than 2.2 million. However, Biden's last full month saw 4,800,000 encounters. Gee, I wonder why that would be. Could it be because they just heard about the election and decided, you know what, we're going to get there, we're going to turn around and get deported. Maybe we're just not going to try. Good job, NPR. Good job. Deportations. I've sent Congress a detailed funding request, laying out exactly how we will eliminate these threats to protect our homeland and complete the largest deportation operation in history, larger than the current record holder, Eisenhower. In his remarks, Trump referenced the 1954's Operation... I don't know if I can say that on YouTube. And I know I'm reading from NPR and it's a quote. I don't know if I can say that on YouTube, though. It starts with a W, and it's typically seen as a racial slur for people from Mexico and further south. I might not be able to do that on YouTube. A racist term used to refer to migrants who cross the Rio Grande. Well, yeah, they even put it up there. Government estimates of Eisenhower's efforts showed more than 1 million immigrants and some U.S. citizens were rounded up. Since then, other presidents have carried out large deportation actions throughout their terms. Obama's admin, for example, deported over 3 million people. But Trump's second admin's own efforts face long-standing logistical and capacity challenges, plus the fact that they're going to be tied up in court every single time that they happen. Let's see, what else are we? Immigrants in the workforce, gold card, immigration. Looks like, okay, now we're going to move on to something that's not immigration. Trump, Biden let the price of eggs get out of control, egg prices out of control, and we're working hard to get it back down. Overall, grocery prices have begun to level off, rising less than 2% between January 24 and January 25. But many people still experience supermarket sticker shock. Eggs have been a particular sore spot lately, with prices jumping 53% over the last year. That's largely due to the ongoing challenge of the avian flu, which has forced egg farmers to slaughter tens of millions of egg-laying chickens. And Biden's own USDA was the one that brought that one in. This is a great one, and this will be where I leave this one off. Worst inflation in 48 years. Fact check from NPR. Totally not biased. Inflation soared to 9.1% in 22, the highest rate in 40 years, not 48. In the wake of the thing that totally made everybody sick in Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. Robust government spending likely added to the price hikes in the U.S., putting more money in people's pockets. Demand surged, outpacing tangled supply chains, but high inflation was a worldwide problem, even in countries where governments didn't spend so heavily, because they use our dollar to do global trade. While inflation has since eased, settling at 3% in January, prices are still climbing faster than most people would like. And it's cumulative, that's 3% on top of the 9.1%. While high prices are a source of frustration for many Americans, the average worker has more buying power today than she did before the pandemic. Since February 2020, just before the pandemic took hold, in the U.S., consumer prices have risen 22.8%, while average wages have risen 25.8%. Where? Wages have been climbing faster than prices for the better part of 2 years. Where? Apparently not in western Wisconsin. Alright. Anyway, let's keep going off of this one. One more, and this was a bit in the response to all of what happened. Eric Doherty pointed out that Schumer and Warren had the exact same script word for word and made the exact same video. It wound up being more than that, by the way. It was like 27 different Congress people from both chambers put out the exact same video. Word for word. But let's watch these two go.
When I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
That ain't true. That's what you just heard. Since day one of Donald Trump's presidency, prices are not down, they're up. Inflation is getting worse, not better. The prices of groceries, gas, housing, eggs, of essentials is not getting better, it's getting worse. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has done nothing. Goose eggs to lower prices for you. Instead, he's pardoned violent criminals who savagely beat police officers on January 6th. That's an effing disgrace. He's letting Elon Musk take a chainsaw to vital government programs and then, even worse, giving him access to Americans' most sensitive data. Social security numbers, tax returns, health care bills. He's fired thousands of essential workers. People who help our veterans get their benefits. People fighting Ebola in Africa so it doesn't come here. He's frozen funding for vital programs that so many American families need. Cancer research, education funding, payments to family farmers, and so much worse. Why are they doing this? Trump, Musk, Doge are taking these vital services away from you for one reason only, so they can give tax breaks to their billionaires club. Their plan is awful, simply awful. Billionaires win, families lose. Well, billionaires win, is the truth.
And that is the truth.
No, there's totally no way that was planned. I'm almost... Honestly, fully, when I look at that, I almost think that some troll in a speechwriter's room somewhere set that up just to make them look bad. Because, well, number one, it made them look bad. And number two, yeah, you had to know, this is the internet. You know people are going to put this shit side by side, especially when one or two of them start doing the same speech. And now, yeah, they found like 27 people did the exact same speech. And it's all propagandistic lines. Trump is bad, and he loves billionaires and his billionaire buddies, and Elon Musk is evil. So, we're going to move on. We're going to talk about the rebuttal for just a moment. I'm going to talk about this for a little bit before we get into it. So, there's spoilers ahead if you haven't seen the rebuttal speech. I'm going to be giving some of the farm away with this one. I don't necessarily want to give Democrats, as long as they've got their crazy fucks in their caucus, the super progressives that are taking control of the party because the corporate Democrats realized that was the only way they could win is to let these crazy fucks get into their party. But I was, even before I listened to the speech today, while I was driving, I was thinking a little bit about what Democrats need to win. And one of the things that dawned on me is it's how I know that they don't have any messaging right now. And they don't. They have absolutely zero messaging. The reason that I know that is because everything that they have to say is Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that. The world is going to end because Donald Trump. And we have to stop Donald Trump, Elon Musk. We have to stop the Trump agenda. They don't have any offer to what it is that they want to do with the middle class. They don't offer anything of substance to what they want to do for them. How they plan to change it. Their only thought is we have to stop Donald Trump. And I said to myself while I was thinking about this, if they could sit down and just stop saying Trump for the next 4 years and come up with a cohesive plan to do X, Y, and Z, and put the steps out on how you would do that without raising taxes, you could probably win the next election over Vance. Because a lot of, and again, I don't want to give the people who have the crazy fucks in their caucus any sort of advice until they sit back and purge the crazy fucks. But a lot of the Vance campaign is going to be, if you let these people back in office, they're going to do Z, Y, and X. And it's going to make your life worse. Where you can actually run and get ahead of that, but... And the first 3 minutes of the speech, which I'm going to play for you, really spoke to that. I mean, of course, she had to put the... We need to get more union jobs because unions give cutbacks to Democrats. But even if you took that back out... This was the first 3 minutes of the speech you're about to hear were the direction that Democrats need to go. And then at the almost, I think it's the 303 mark, it just goes into Trump is evil and he's going to take everything away from you and he's going to force women into the kitchen and Elon Musk is stealing your data and stealing your Social Security and everything else. Whoever wrote this speech was off to a great start. But all that I got out of this is the fact that they don't have a message. Their only message is Trump bad. And that's why they're going to lose again in 26 and in 28. Until they can get off of that message, they're going to continue to lose. Let's listen.
I have the opportunity to speak tonight. It's late, so I promise to be a lot shorter than what you just watched. I won't take it personally if you've never heard of me. I'm the new senator from the great state of Michigan, where I grew up. I've been in public service my entire life because I happened to be in New York City on 9/11 when the Twin Towers came down. Before the smoke cleared, I knew I wanted to make a life in national security. I was recruited by the CIA and did 3 tours in Iraq alongside the military. In between, I worked at the White House under President Bush and President Obama, 2 very different leaders who both believed that America is exceptional. You can find that same sense of patriotism here in Wyandotte, Michigan, where I'm speaking from tonight. It's a working class town just south of Detroit. President Trump and I both won here in November. It might not seem like it, but plenty of places like this still exist across the United States. Places where people believe that if you work hard and play by the rules, you should do well and your kids should do better. It reminds me of how I grew up. My dad was a lifelong Republican, my mom a lifelong Democrat. But it was never a big deal because we had shared values that were bigger than any one party. We just went through another fraught election season. Americans made it clear that prices are too high and that the government needs to be more responsive to their needs. America wants change, but there's a responsible way to make change and a reckless way. And we can.
And I like a lot of this too. Americans, we recognize that your grocery prices are too high. The government needs to listen to the American people. This is a fantastic speech, almost entirely. At this point, at least.
Make that change without forgetting who we are as a country and as a democracy. So that's what I'm going to lay out tonight. Because whether you're from Wyandotte or Wichita, most Americans share 3 core beliefs. That the middle class is the engine of our country, that strong national security protects us from harm, and that our democracy, no matter how messy, is unparalleled and worth fighting for. Let's start with the economy. Michigan literally invented the middle class, the revolutionary idea that you could work at an auto plant and afford the car you were building. That's the American dream. And in order to expand and protect the middle class, we have to do a few basic things. We need to bring down the price of things we spend the most money on: groceries, housing, healthcare. We need to make more things in America with good-paying union jobs and bring our supply chains back home from places like China. We need to give American businesses the certainty they need to invest and create the jobs of the future. And we need a tax system that's fair for people who don't happen to make $1 billion. Look, the president talked a big game on the economy, but it's always important to read the fine print. So, do his plans actually help Americans get ahead? Not even close.
And this is
President
where it's
Trump
off the
is
rails.
trying to...
So I guess I gave her too much of the benefit of the doubt. I said 303. It was 253. And up until that point, with the exception, like I said, we need to lower the prices of this and lower the cost of housing and bring in more good jobs. And then, of course, again, she had to throw union in there because the union members need to pay in their dues so the AFL-CIO can rake a little off the top and put it back in the pockets of people like Alyssa Slotkin. But again, looking entirely away from that for just a moment, the fact of the matter is that the type of jobs that have been historically union were also the type of jobs that were held by people like me, and probably a lot of people are going to watch this, both live and on the back end. Teaching, truck driving, factory, things like that are historically union jobs. But then, yeah, at 253, it's just straight off the rails of, okay, I've said that we need to focus on these things. Now, here are 15 different reasons that Donald Trump is evil. I'm not going to go through the whole remaining 7 minutes of this, but we're going to listen to a little bit more of it.
To deliver an unprecedented giveaway to his billionaire friends.
Billionaire
He's on
friends!
the hunt to find trillions of dollars to pass along to the wealthiest in America. And to do that, he's going to make you pay in every part of your life. Grocery and home prices are going up, not down. And he hasn't laid out a credible plan to deal with either of those.
Neither of you.
His tariffs on allies like Canada will raise prices on energy, lumber, and cars, and start a trade war that will hurt manufacturing and farmers. Your premiums and prescriptions will cost more because the math on his proposals doesn't work without going after your health care.
Your health care!
Meanwhile, for those keeping score, the national debt is going
after
up,
yours.
not down. And if he's not careful, he could walk us right into a recession.
That we set up for him.
And one more thing. In order to pay for his plan, he could very well come after your retirement. The Social Security, Medicare, and VA benefits you worked your whole life to earn.
Yeah, nothing about what else you put in for yourself. Yeah, that's it. He's coming after this. He's going to take this away from you. He's going to make everything more expensive for you. He's evil. I just talked for 3 minutes about all the wonderful things that we need to do because this is what we need to focus on. And Donald Trump is evil. This is why they lose. And this is why they lose 26. Right there. Friend of the show, Polita Bunny. While this broad only made things worse for Democrats, she reminds me of the sort of woman who cuts in line and glares at you for noticing. Let's watch. Let's see which 27 seconds she used for this one. I've not pre-watched this, so.
While we're on the subject of Elon Musk, is there anyone in America who is comfortable with him and his gang of 20-year-olds using their own computer servers to poke through your tax returns, your health information, and your bank accounts? No oversight, no protections against cyber attack, no guardrails on what they do with your private data. We need a more efficient government. You want to cut waste? I'll help you do it. But change doesn't need to be chaotic. While we're on the subject...
Oh, of course. President Elon Musk, his gang of 20-year-olds, stealing your data. I appreciate it in an hour and 40 minutes. And I know that CNN brought it up, and I chose to avoid that particular line in there, is that evil Donald Trump mentioned Joe Biden 12 times during his speech. This woman gave a 10-minute speech, and 7 minutes of it was, Donald Trump and Elon Musk are evil. But that doesn't fit the CNN narrative, now does it? Let's keep going. Reagan is rolling in his grave, Slotkin says in Democratic response to Trump. By the way, they're going to run this one for 28. That's who they're going to run against Vance. The card's already in. That's part of the reason that she's up there right now giving this speech. Is she is going to be the nominee. She's going to get the superdelegates too. This is who they're going to run right there. Relatively young, honestly, relatively attractive. I think she's younger than I am. First female president. Yeah, that's dark horse. First term in Congress. They're going to try to Obama this lady in. Henry J. Gomez reporting for NPC News. Senator Slotkin of Michigan lit into Trump on Tuesday night, suggesting that Reagan, whose peace to restraint mantra Trump has adopted, would be appalled by his approach to Russia's war against Ukraine. We're going to be talking a bit more about that later on, but after the spectacle that just took place in the Oval Orifice last week, Reagan must be rolling in his grave, Slotkin, referring to Trump's unexpected contentious meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky last week, said in her response to the joint address to Congress. As a Cold War kid, I'm thankful it was Reagan and not Trump in office in the 80s. Trump would have lost us the Cold War. If he's not careful, he could walk us right into a recession. Slotkin posited that Trump's policies, as well as the sweeping cuts he has empowered billionaire tech mogul Elon Musk to oversee as part of the government's efficiency initiative, would be destructive to most Americans. He's on the hunt to find trillions of dollars to pass along to the wealthiest in America. He's evil, and to do that, he's going to make you pay more in every part of your life. Jesus. And like I said, if the corporate Democrats want to win, the first thing they have to do is get rid of these nutbags who think that the government can just print infinity dollars and take away every asset that billionaires own, and it's just going to magically turn into liquid cash that they can turn around and make it rain on the poor people. They need to get rid of those fucking morons. And then spend 4 years not saying the words Donald Trump anytime they address the people. Say the words, your grocery prices are too high. Here's what I want to do to fix that. You can't buy a home because the home prices are too high. Here's what I want to do to fix that. If they could spend 4 years doing that, they would win in 28. Promise. They're not going to win in 28 because, well, they're going to do this for 4 more years. And they're going to do it through Vance's first term too, because I'm almost positive they're going to run Vance and he's going to win. Because they never learned their lesson. The BBC, who is Alyssa Slotkin, the Democrat who responded to Trump's speech, a first-term dark horse that they're going to try to push in, like they did again to Obama. From Madeleine Halpert and Brandon Drennan. Alyssa Slotkin, a U.S. Senate Democrat, gave her party's response to Trump's congressional address, taking the new Trump admin to task for bringing with it chaos and recklessness. Early in her remarks, she attacked the White House on the economy and warned that if Trump was not careful, he could walk us into a recession. Slotkin also took a shot at DOGE, the cost-cutting project led by Musk, saying change is needed but doesn't need to be chaotic or make us less safe. She made a quick reference to Democrats' stinging election defeat in November, but then quickly pivoted to Trump. Americans made it clear the prices were too high and the government needs to be more responsive to their needs. America wants change, she says, but evil Donald Trump. Throughout the election, voters frequently said the economy was their number one concern, and Democrats' defeat was blamed on not addressing it sufficiently. No, Democrats' defeat was blamed on Russia. It actually was about Democrats not addressing it sufficiently, but it was blamed on Russia. Yeah, that's going to be their dark horse. That's who they're going to push in. I'm going to read a little bit of this, but I'm going to sum it up in one sentence. Where Alyssa Slotkin won me over in the Democrat response to Trump's address. From Hayes Brown, an MSDNC reporter. Now, before I read into this, here's how Alyssa Slotkin won Hayes Brown over. Alyssa Slotkin has a D next to her name. Now he's going to go back to try to justify it, so I'll admit I was a little skeptical. Lie. When Alyssa Slotkin began Democrats' response to Trump's joint address, as she emphasized her background as a CIA officer in a bipartisan household she grew up in. You weren't skeptical. She has a D after her name. You're paid to propagandize about her. But as she went on, while she definitely sounded like the standard center-left Democrat, Slotkin managed to do so in a way that felt like a more sincere expression of her values than a calculated attempt to win over suburban moderates. As she ticked through the chaos that Elon Musk has caused with his random cuts to the Department of Government Efficiency and the uncertainty Trump was sowing around the world, it felt like what she was saying would make sense to people who aren't reading every political headline. What really won me over were her suggestions for how Americans can take action during a chaotic time. First, don't tune out. It's easy to be exhausted, but America needs you now more than ever. If previous generations had not fought for democracy, where would we be today? Second, hold your elected officials, including me, accountable. But not me, of course. Watch how they're voting, go to town halls and demand they take action. That's as American as apple pie. 3, organize. Protest. Pick one issue you're passionate about and engage. And doom scrolling doesn't count. Join a group that cares about your issue and act. If you can't find one, start one. Some of the most important movements in our history have come from the bottom up. So, no, be more politically active. Go to a town hall and demand that they take action. But no, she actually just won him over because she's got a D next to her name. All right, so that was the joint session of Congress speech. What have we done? An hour 12 on that? We're just getting to the title part now. So we go to CNN politics here. Trump and Vance erupt at Zelensky intense Oval Office meeting. I watched this whole thing. There were some problems, and it actually looked like it was going really, really well at first. And I looked at some of the body language that Zelensky was putting off. For the people who think that this was conspiratorial and that they had set Zelensky up to go back in and try to sow the chaos to make it look like Trump and Vance were unhinged, and where he was just kind of sitting there nervous and waiting for his moment throughout the entire thing, I can see where you're coming from. And honestly, if I was told that they got caught with a planning note somewhere, I would believe it. Because none of that looked natural. Where I was going. Now, in the speech, towards the end when everything erupted, and Trump started doing it's all Joe Biden's fault, and he's a very dumb man, and, now these people got in, and Russia. That didn't help the cause any. One of the things that I thought that did help the cause, one of the reporters came out and said, well, why don't you go back and condemn Putin right off and say how terrible of a person he is? And Trump said something that I've been harping on this channel since the whole fucking thing popped off, and that was the idea of, I'm not just going to go and say, Vladimir Putin is a terrible person, the most evil person in the world. Oh, hey, Vladimir, I want to make a deal with you. Because that's not going to work. Clearly, because this has been going on for 4 years now. A remarkable shouting match broke out at the Oval Office Friday as Trump berated Volodymyr Zelensky. An extraordinarily fractious display that only underscored the deeply uncertain future of the American assistance to Kiev. Never before has an American president verbally attacked his visitor like Trump and did Zelensky. Because, well, world leaders don't typically come into our house and demand that you give them money. Leading to an almost real-time breakdown in relations between DC and Kiev. Trump at one point threatened to give up on Kiev entirely. Castigating Zelensky for not demonstrating enough gratitude for American support, Trump and Vance raised their voices, accusing the besieged leader of standing in the way of a peace agreement with Russia. Fact check true, by the way. Later, he was essentially kicked out of the White House and departed with a grim look on his face. Look, okay, you're right now not really in a good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. I'm not playing cards, Zelensky said. Raising his voice after more back and forth, Trump said, "You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. At one point, Vance accused Zelensky of being disrespectful toward his American hosts. You're not acting thankful. Have you said thank you once?" Vance asked Zelensky. Afterward, Trump huddled with key advisors inside the Oval Office to assess the situation, including Vance, Rubio, and Scott Bessent. Let's look at this. Let's see what CNN has as what they want you to focus on. Now, if you want to see what happened, there are a lot of people, including from people who I've seen as Democrats through this, and I checked profiles. These weren't just fresh-made profiles or people who suddenly flipped and have been talking about Republicans all their Twitter lives, and now we're suddenly talking about how they used to be a Democrat voter and they saw this and they were disappointed. No, I looked back through some timelines and a lot of very Democrat people looked at this, watched the whole video and said, no, this might have been Zelensky coming back and starting this. It was a little bit hard to follow when it first came out. Like, I watched the full video, the full press conference, all 40 minutes of it. I did see where Zelensky called J.D. Vance a bitch in Ukrainian. But again, it really did seem like this was all set up from the start to try to get this outburst on TV. Let's watch what they have.
For 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now the President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact
2015.
2014.
2014 and
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
that's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, yeah, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president, In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you can...
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I answer?
Wait a minute. No, you've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
you
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment, and your men are brave, but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have our military equipment, if you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
maybe
new.
Less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. I tell you.
Just say thank you.
I said a lot of times to American people.
Except that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's very important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the cards.
Thankful.
You're buried there. Your people are dying. You're running low on soldiers. Listen, you're running low on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing. And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look. If you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
With guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't with me.
For you
that wasn't with me.
All right, so there were a lot of things that were brought up just in that little exchange in and of itself. Now, Where Trump is right is the fact that, yes, any of the aggression that's happened against the Ukraine, Crimea, and Donbass region didn't happen under him. It wasn't initiated. There was a ceasefire that was signed in 2019 that was broken once Biden was back in office, which basically was Putin realizing that Biden wasn't going to do jack shit about it except for throw a bunch of weapons. I wasn't real thrilled with the way that Vance handled that, honestly. And this is the fourth time that I've watched this exchange specifically. The first time I watched the entire press conference, and then the second and third times I sat down and watched this, it was just this exchange over again and what we just saw. And no, the you didn't even say thank you kind of thing. Yes, it does speak to a bit of decorum and respect that Zelensky should have, because we are sending large amounts of cash, weapons, supplies to his country. But it's not the most important thing right now. We're sitting in a situation where the press pool wants Trump and Vance to say Putin evil, Putin evil. And then, yeah, if you come back and say Putin evil, why should Putin come to the table? And I love the manufactured crisis that came out of this too, because I think it was one of the Polish journalists that was in the press pool, came back and made fun of the fact that he wasn't wearing a suit. And why don't you wear a suit? Do you own a suit? This and that and the next thing. That is going to be the next tan suit, the next controversy that Democrats scream about for the next 20 years. About this one time this Democrat did something, or this person supported by Democrats did something, and Republicans just lost their minds. Oh no, they lost their minds because he didn't wear a suit. He wore a tan suit. It was his only scandal in office. That's exactly what that was a setup for. And again, when I look at stuff like this, I look at this and say, a lot of this seems like this was set up. Alright, what else do we have? Let's have some... No, I have an X tab up. It's probably video. This little exchange here. What if Russia breaks the ceasefire? Well, you need to have the ceasefire first before we discuss that. Then, typically if there's a ceasefire, there's some sort of rules to that ceasefire and a consequence laid out if you break it.
What if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia breaks peace talks? What do you do then? I understand that it's a heated conversation right now.
What are you saying?
She's asking, what if Russia breaks the ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now? Okay? What if they broke it? I don't know. They broke it with Biden because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me.
Which, honestly, if I was in Trump's shoes and I got that question, I would say, well, there'd be a lot of glass in Moscow right now. I'd sit back there and make him wonder if I'd make Putin wonder if I'm actually crazy enough to do it or not. Alright, from the Hill, 4 lessons to be learned from Zelensky's White House meeting. We gotta move this along a little bit. We're already at 90 minutes. From Nick Mulvaney, this is an op-ed. Ordinarily, I might be a little reticent about offering advice to world leaders on how to conduct international relations. Then again, I never expected someone as high-profile as Zelensky's to perform so miserably as he did at his meeting with Trump in the Oval Office. Perhaps there are some lessons to be learned. Start with the easy stuff. Dress appropriately. Yes, it sounds petty. At some levels, given the gravity of everything happening in the world, it probably is, but it counts. Trump appears to be willing to let Musk get away with jeans and a t-shirt get up, but maybe the richest man in the world has his own set of rules. Also, maybe their relationship is much stronger than others, and Elon doesn't need to make a good first impression. Or maybe Trump isn't at all good with it, and he just had a public blow-up yet with Musk. I remember specifically one occasion at a bilateral meeting with Shinzo Abe, when Trump complained about my socks, which is to say he pays attention to that sort of thing. Second, if English isn't your first language, you should use an interpreter. There was one exchange where someone in the Oval Office asked Zelensky about his attire, and his response was something to the effect that when the war was over, he would wear the costume. Afterward, but only afterward, I learned that costume is the literal translation of the Ukrainian word for suit. But afterward is too late. Third, moving away from the procedural and substantive, have the hard conversations when the doors are closed. Part of this is part of where I think that this might have been set up to have this in front of the American people, because they tried to do this behind the closed doors and it didn't go over in Zelensky's favor. So he tried to garner the sympathy of the world by getting the Donald and the Vance to blow up at him. Bilateral meetings like Fridays are typically scripted. The routine is well known for almost everyone. You smile for the camera and shake the hands. Everyone says how productive the meetings were and how much they look forward to the dialogue. At the very worst, you might say something like, "We don't see eye to eye on everything, but we're continuing to talk." Finally, and this is probably the most difficult, but also the most important point, leaders need to realize when they're an impediment to getting a deal done. I think that some would suggest that personalities don't or shouldn't play a role in international affairs, that geopolitical decision-making should be driven exclusively by facts and circumstances. National interests and long-term considerations, and yes, those things play a role, but to think that just because people get elected to office makes them something other than humans is deny our nature. Personalities matter, likability matters, demeanor matters. When those things are an impediment to a relationship or to getting a deal done, as Zelensky's is, you need to give strong consideration to getting out of the way. So, in this op-ed, Mulvaney, his second 2 points were good. I liked that. His first 2 points were complete and utter bullshit. You possibly shouldn't have an interpreter. Like, if you know English, even if it's a second language, you should be able to use that, and yes, there should be some level of understanding for what words mean in the other language in case there's a slip up like that. But I don't think you should be specifically speaking through an interpreter, but at least have someone to advise you to make sure you say the right word, or to tap you on the shoulder and correct you and say, no, that wasn't the right word, you mean suit. That's a lot more effective than you spitting off a bunch of Ukrainian and then somebody else interpreting it, and then possibly having his own spin on that. And yeah, the suit thing, just fucking get rid of that. First couple days off of this one was Trump continues to seethe at Zelensky as National Security Team gathers and discuss what's next on Ukraine, which we talked a bit about this in the other article. I just wanted the headline in there to show that CNN is trying to make this again look like Trump is mad that he didn't get his way and he got dressed down and he lost his temper. But, well, 4 days later and it seems that Volodymyr has changed his tune. Some of the jokes that came out of this one, I thought this one was funny. Yakovov, at Yakovov over on X, says, Vladimir Putin has offered to mediate a peace deal between Trump and Zelensky. I thought it was funny. I enjoyed that one. That was a good one. The day after, Eric Doherty again, just in, Zelensky launched a barrage of messages pleading with Trump to continue the original minerals deal. He still insists on security guarantees and says this: Europe is ready for contingencies and to help fund large army. We also need a U.S. role in defining security guarantees. What kind, what volume, and when. Once these guarantees are in place, we can talk about Russia, Europe, and U.S. about diplomacy. War alone is too long, and we don't have enough weapons to push them out entirely. And yeah, it was a pretty long tweet storm that he came up with on this one. We're ready to sign the minerals agreement. I cannot change Ukraine's position on Russia. The Russians are killing us. Russia is the enemy. Russia, Russia, Russia. And that's the reality we face. Ukraine wants peace, but it must be a less just and lasting peace. For that, we need to be strong at the negotiation table. We want peace. That's why I came to the U.S. and visited Trump. The deal on minerals is the first step towards that. It will be difficult without the U.S., but we can't lose our will, our freedom, our people. So, looks like he's ready to go with this one. A statement, however, and I'm going to read this one in its entirety because one of the members of parliament in Ukraine, who is in prison, by the way, and I don't think can actually do this, but wants to come back and file the articles of impeachment on it. Statement by member of Ukrainian parliament, Alexander Dubinsky. The events of the past hours, the public humiliation of Zelensky at the White House, Trump's acknowledgement of Zelensky's diplomatic failure, and Ukraine's loss of unconditional U.S. support have marked the final act of the regime's collapse. But Zelensky has not only failed in foreign policy, he's driven the country into a state where anyone who disagrees with his course faces repression. I was thrown into prison for not a crime, but for speaking the truth, the very truth that Trump has now stated. Zelensky has lost. He has no cards left to play, he's running out of soldiers, and the country has reached a dead end due to his stubbornness. I demand the immediate convening of an emergency session of the parliament, where parliament must initiate impeachment proceedings against Zelensky for the failure of foreign policy, which has led to Ukraine's international isolation and the loss of allied support. A lost war, which is the result of incompetent leadership and catastrophic decisions. And having a soldier pool a fifth of the size of Russia's. Just saying. A violation of citizens' rights and the usurpation of power manifested in the suppression of the opposition, persecution of dissenters, and authoritarian rule. I appeal to all members of the Ukrainian parliament, stop wasting time, stop waiting. Zelensky is bankrupt. Zelensky is not Ukraine. It's time to put him on trial. If he cannot offer a real way out of the crisis, then it's up to us to make the fateful decisions. Zelensky thought he could rule Ukraine through force. Now he is lost. Ukraine must decide, will it continue its free fall into the abyss, or will it begin the fight for true independence? Alexander Dubinsky, member of the Ukrainian parliament. I feel like they're going to continue their free fall into the abyss. Just based on what I've learned over the last 4 years. 46% of voters see no clear winner in the Trump-Zelensky meeting, per poll. 46% of surveyed American voters said that neither the U.S. nor Ukraine walked away as the winner from last week's meeting between Trump and Zelensky, according to a new Emerson College poll released on Monday. Another 35% surveyed voters said the U.S. walked away as a winner, while 15% said the same about Ukraine. 4% said both countries were equally successful. Again, without an aggregate, you can make a poll say anything that you want. Alright, let's hear how Vance described what happened to this after the fact, which he got protested in Vermont. We might skip that, but
J.D. Vance is telling the country what he thought and felt during that now infamous, potentially history-altering Oval Office shouting match. The vice president saw himself and Donald Trump as mediating forces, not the instigators.
Let's go back to the Oval Office Friday.
Yep.
From your perspective.
Yeah, great TV, as the president said. Yeah, well, you know, it's funny. So we have a 45-minute press conference, and the president normally does this. I mean, I've seen this now 3 or 4 times with foreign leaders where he likes to bring the media in, likes to have a conversation, but answer questions with the press. As you know, he's very open with reporters. And what I noticed is that for the first 25, 30 or so minutes, he tried to sort of bend over backwards to be gracious and kind to Zelensky, even when Zelensky was kind of needling him, even when Zelensky was saying things that I thought were untrue. The president just tried to be diplomatic, right? I think that's his natural instinct in that situation. And then when it really went off the rails, of course, is when I asked, or you had a Polish journalist who asked a question, the president answered it, and then I answered it, and then something about my answer just really set Zelensky off. So then he came at me.
So you're blaming yourself.
And then I went back at him, and what I tried to do originally was actually try to diffuse the situation a little bit, because I'm like, we're having this meeting. Obviously, there are 100 television cameras here. Let's try to have this conversation in private. And then the president, as we kept on going back and forth, I tried again to say, well, maybe we should have this conversation in private. And the president was like, nope, actually, I don't want to have it in private anymore. I want to have this actual conversation in public for the American people to see. And I do think that there was just a certain sense of, there was a lack of respect. There was a certain sense of entitlement.
J.D. Vance seemed to really enjoy his role there, as you can tell when he was talking to Hannity. A lot of laughing.
So, yeah, I can see where he's coming from off of this, where like he's sitting there and everybody's going to look at a situation like that and see themselves as the good guy under most circumstances. I have gone into circumstances post and said, wow, I really sucked at that situation, but where he's coming, and honestly from where he is at too, it's really not a place where he can come out and say out loud, yeah, I really sucked at that, because he is at least on the top of the diplomatic team that's trying to put an end to this one. To come back and do that would show weakness, but I can also see where he's coming from. And now he's ready to come back to the table. Zelensky describes Oval Office meeting as regrettable, says he's ready to negotiate peace. From Nick Batone-Walsh, Rob Pichetta, and Lauren Kent over at CNN. Zelensky has said his Oval Office meeting last week with Trump did not go the way it was supposed to, describing the fiery meeting as regrettable, and noting Ukraine is ready to negotiate about the end of the conflict. I would like to reiterate Ukraine's commitment to peace, Zelensky said on X, addressing his remarkable sit-down with Trump directly. Trump advanced berated Zelensky during the meeting, angrily accusing him of gambling with World War III and telling him, your country is in big trouble. Our meeting in Washington at the White House on Friday did not go the way that it was supposed to. Zelensky wrote on Tuesday's X post, it's regrettable what happened this way. It's time to make things right. We would like future cooperation and communication to be constructive. I think the translation of this is he realized that Europe doesn't have as deep of pockets as he thought that he did. Because Europe did jump right up and say, oh no, we're going to go commit our troops. We're going to put boots on the ground. Right in Ukraine. Boots on the ground. Almost immediately. And then we realized that, number one, boots on the ground in Ukraine with NATO versus Russia would be a World War III triggering event. 100%. And number two, they don't have, like I said, as deep of pockets. Trump, of course, saying he appreciates Zelensky's message on Ukraine peace. So we'll continue to see what's happening with that. All right. We gotta keep going. In the light of this, and the U.S. stepping away from a lot of this, and I wasn't able to find an article that went with this, so grain of salt mode on this one. The left-wing candidate who's running to replace Justin Trudeau says that British nuclear weapons can protect Canada against Trump from their Liberal Party. So now that's Canada begging one NATO country to launch nukes at the other NATO country. Yeah, that's a thing that happened this week. What else do we have? Yeah, like I said, boots on the ground in Europe. Keir Starmer. With boots on the ground and planes in the air, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer on what they plan to do with the Ukraine.
First, we will keep the military aid flowing and keep increasing the economic pressure on Russia to strengthen Ukraine now. Second, we agreed that any lasting peace must ensure Ukraine's sovereignty and security, and Ukraine must be at the table. Third, in the event of a peace deal, we will keep boosting Ukraine's own defensive capabilities to deter any future invasion. Fourth, we will go further to develop a coalition of the willing to defend a deal in Ukraine and to guarantee the peace. Not every nation will feel able to contribute, but that can't mean that we sit back. Instead, those willing will intensify planning now with real urgency. The UK is prepared to back this with boots on the ground and planes in the air. Together with others, Europe must do the heavy lifting. But to support peace in our continent and to succeed, this effort must have strong US backing. We're working with the US on this point after my meeting with President Trump last week. And let me be clear, we agree with the President on the urgent need for a durable peace. Now, we need to deliver together. Finally, we agreed that leaders will meet again very soon to keep the pace behind these actions and to keep working towards this shared plan. We are at a crossroads in history today. This is not a moment for more talk. It's time to act, time to step up and lead, and to unite around a new plan for a just and enduring peace. Thank you.
I really want to know what it is that's in Ukraine that the rest of the West wants hidden so bad that they don't want Putin to have access to it. We have had a shutdown of military aid to the Ukraine. From the USA Today, all U.S. weapons deliveries to Ukraine stop after Trump's gives order to shut off aid. From Sybil Mays Osterman. Well, the defense contractors aren't going to like that very much. I can tell you that. U.S. weapons deliveries to Ukraine came to an abrupt halt on Monday, as Trump ordered a pause on all aid to the war-torn country, the Pentagon confirmed on Tuesday. After the order was given, all U.S. weapons shipments to Ukraine came to a stop as of 1800 Eastern Time Monday evening. According to a defense official, planes carrying supplies en route to Ukraine would have had to turn around, the official said. Zelensky, backed by Ukraine's European allies, had resisted negotiating an end to the war without a security guarantee to stop Russian President Putin from attacking Ukraine again in the future. But on Tuesday, hours after the aid shipment stopped, he announced he was ready to negotiate a peace deal with Russia, saying, "It's time to make things right." Funny how that works. But of course, Ukrainians say that if you don't give us all the weapons and intelligence, it's going to cost us lives. Well, tell your president to come in with a ceasefire. We'll figure out what to do after that. Trump's decision to stop intelligence sharing will cost lives, Ukrainians say. From Artem Grutinin, Anastasia Parfenuik, and Alexander Smith. Ukraine may have had enough weapons to fight Russia unaffected for a few weeks at least, but Trump's decision to stop sharing intelligence will cost civilians lives almost immediately, dismayed Ukrainians said on Thursday. Trump's decision to halt intelligence came as European leaders, including Zelensky, convened a summit in Brussels as they attempt to cope with an upended landscape in which Trump admin appears to be treating them with hostility while seemingly warming to the Kremlin, because of course they had to put that in. Miles away from those high-powered meetings, ordinary Ukrainians may have to confront a real-world consequence of the White House's U-turn. As Washington turns off the tap on $65 billion of military aid, which, again, reminder, the replenishment of that, because it's all of our old and outdated equipment that's been in storerooms forever. When that goes and gets replenished, that goes right into the pocket of Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. Ukraine will now also have to do without American intelligence that has helped to anticipate Russian attacks and troop movements and avoid nightly barrages from Russian drones on its cities and infrastructure. Viewed from the homes and apartments of Kiev, it seems like a very petty decision by our alleged ally, said Myroslava Yermakiv, who manages donations at an NGO in the capital. The U.S. has the power to at least protect and save the lives of civilians from Russia's brutal and terrorizing attacks, and you just choose not to. The White House cut off this intel feed following the disastrous meeting last week, of course. The feeling is no less deeply felt in Kiev, even though there's no fighting in Kiev at all. There is no fighting anywhere in Kiev. Let's open this up. Here's Kiev, and here's where all the fighting is. A region, again, that I don't believe they have any interest in taking the entire nation, otherwise they would have gone through their puppet state, Belarus, and gone right down to the capital. Because the topic of giving up territory to end the war was up, somebody on X posted, well, what part of your country would you be comfortable with giving up if Putin started bombing your country? And I think there was a resounding unison on X that all said California. The whole thing went so bad that even Lindsey Graham, war pig that he is, Lindsey Graham, said the hand-wringing European who felt offended by President Trump rejecting being lectured by President Zelensky, be my guest to defend Ukraine from Putin, sugar. It's long past time for Europeans to show they're capable of defending their own continent. They've allowed their militaries to be hollowed out, and I'd love a nice warm place that's hollowed out for me. And when Europe speaks, no bad guy listens. I say this with great sadness because I get stock return from defense contractors. The last group of people that I would count on to defend freedom are the Europeans. When Lindsey Graham is telling you that he doesn't support military aid, you done fucked up. Alleged grain of salt mode. Obama's team, including Blinken, Victoria Nuland, Susan Rice, and Alexander Vindman, advised Zelensky to reject Trump's deal in violation of the Logan Act. Confirmation of that needed, by the way. But I know that there was a meeting between Amy Klobuchar, and this one I don't recognize, and Lindsey Graham and Zelensky right before the fabled White House thing happened. I like this one. The redheaded libertarian. This is the level of ironic mockery I aspire to. Rob Jenkins. If Putin isn't stopped, all of Europe could succumb to totalitarianism. People could be jailed for social media posts. Which the irony there is because it happens in England. They could be threatened with arrest for praying in their homes. Germany, Denmark, France. Rape gangs and child traffickers could run rampant. It'd be quicker to list the countries that's not happening in. It's too awful to contemplate. I see what you did there. I see it. I see it. Another nice ironic statement here. Clown World actually came back and commented on this one. Russia is so weak they can't beat Ukraine. Also, if we don't stop Russia now, they're going to fight all of NATO and take over all of Europe. So they're simultaneously losing badly to Ukraine, but if we cut off their weapons, then they'll just plow through Europe. Amazing how these two statements are allowed to exist at the same time. Alright, we're at 155. What else do we have? I'll skip the Vance got protested in Vermont because, well, that's happening all over the country. We're at 155. I could move some of this to next week. I want to briefly touch on this one because this was started and finished in about the same day. So let's go with this one because that'll sum everything up. So Trump walks back tariffs on a range of goods from Mexico and Canada for 1 month. There was a 25% tariff that was threatened on all products against Canada, Mexico, and a 35% tariff on Chinese goods. Now, with a lot of business going back and forth between, especially the automotive industry, going back and forth between Canada and Mexico, and driving everything from the price of new trucks, which will drive up the price of goods, by the way, because the trucking companies and the owner-operators have to charge more to pay off their trucks. The price of new cars coming in at a time where people are already really can't afford cars, and strong plants in both Mexico and Canada. With a 25% tariff going across for anything that comes back into the country from an American company, the stock market looked at that and said, no, we don't want any of that. And just almost immediately it got turned back around. So let's go with NPC News for this one. Since we're skipping these, I'm going to skip back out of these ones. This is from Shannon Pettypiece. Trump issued exemptions on tariffs for a variety of goods coming into the U.S. from Mexico and Canada just 2 days after he put the sweeping tariffs in place. Now, this is only for a month, and this is, I think, to get some of these manufacturers to turn around and get their factories and production stateside, even though they've been talking about this since November, leaving investors and business grappling with whiplash from the back-and-forth trade policy. The exemptions to the 25% tariffs enacted on Tuesday would apply to about half of goods coming into the U.S. from Mexico and around 38% of goods from Canada that comply with the North American trade deal reached during the first term, according to a senior admin official. It's the second time in less than 2 months that Trump has announced and then backtracked on tariffs on the U.S.'s neighbors. The moves have rattled the stock market, with businesses warning that the added costs could drive prices higher and cut into their profits. The Dow and the S&P are on pace for their worst weeks in September. The can keeps getting kicked down the road, and we don't know what it means, said Chuck Dardis. He later added, to make investments and to do things we need to do, we need some certainty. Not that we can have a perfect certainty, but not be on a constant diet of, well, we'll wait till next month and see if the axe is going to fall. Which is, as an investor, a fair assessment to take. But as far as this goes, now, first off, the first thing I'm going to say is, I'm a tariff guy, as long as it is perfectly in line with the tariffs that are put on our country and other goods, because what a lot of these people who are saying that tariffs are just going to add your cost and they're going to make us not competitive in the rest of the world fail to realize is the fact that we're already tariffed in almost every country in the world. U.S. goods face high duties on almost every country across the world because they do want to encourage manufacture and sale within either the European Union or their home country. Because it can be made cheaply on a 40-hour work week, not a 32-hour work week in the United States. But then we cut into the investment of their home countries, obviously, if we have free access to the markets. I've often said, and this again goes back to when I was starting to blog about politics and not about lifestyle anymore, one of the things that I wanted to do is, if I ever, God forbid, became president, God help us all, I wanted a list of every duty and tariff on every good from every country across the world, and then turn around and implement the exact same tariff on that product for goods coming out of these countries and coming into ours. Not because I want to see the free market stifled, I want the free market to be open, but I want it to be equal. And if you want the tariff to come down because you want to sell into our market, which a lot of these countries do because Americans have a lot of disposable income, even under a recession, and they can make these other countries rich with a trade deficit, then your market is open to us the same way. Otherwise, we will treat you exactly the same way that you treat us, is essentially my point on it. And the first country that says, no, I'm going to drop your tariff from 25% to 3%, because we still make government money off of that. Okay, your tariff is down to 3%, right there. As soon as you react, I will react. The exemptions Trump issued on Thursday will last until April 2nd, when Trump plans another round of retaliatory tariffs on goods from a range of countries. The exemptions apply to some things like potash, which is used in fertilizers, but some Canadian energy products won't qualify and will be subjected to a 10% tariff, which will be a good encouragement to get more done over here. And all other goods, including computers from Mexico, will be subjected to the 25% tariff, a senior admin official said. So, it's happening. Buckle up. We have had an executive order making English the official language of the U.S. There are pros and cons to this. Honestly, with being a nation of immigrants, I understand the ability, what we do and why we don't have an official language, but we do have an official language. All of our government documents are written in English. So you should at least have some knowledge that if you're going to come here, either on tour or to immigrate, or even to illegally immigrate, anything that you fill out, anything you have to do, all of our signs, everything else are all in English. We have an official language. It's just not officially mandated. This was really kind of nothing, honestly. Alright. And the rest of this here, I want to do the Chauvin thing. If it takes me until 10 o'clock to finish this out because of things I like and things that I hate, so be it. I want to do the Chauvin thing. So, Will Sommer pointing out that Shapiro and the Daily Wire are launching a campaign asking Trump to pardon Chauvin. Musk tweeted, "It's something to think about. Let's listen."
If we are issuing pardons, however, there is one person that President Trump should pardon from federal charges forthwith. It would be incredibly controversial, but I think that it's absolutely necessary. That person is Derek Chauvin. President Trump should, in fact, pardon Derek Chauvin. He should. He should pardon him his federal charges. If we are talking about reversing the evils of the last several years in American life, obviously COVID and its handling was a massive evil. Destroyed the economy, set us on a path to fiscal insanity, destroyed children, led to massive health-related cover-ups, just horrifying all the way around. And President Trump has taken on a lot of those things. But when it came to BLM, the inciting event for the BLM riots that caused $2 billion in property damage in the United States and set America's race relations on their worst footing in my lifetime, was in fact the railroading of Derek Chauvin in the death of George Floyd. The evidence demonstrates that Derek Chauvin did not in fact commit murder of George Floyd. George Floyd was high on fentanyl. He had a significant pre-existing heart condition. George Floyd was saying he could not breathe before he was even out of the car. He was in the car saying he could not breathe. Derek Chauvin, for large segments of even the tape that was shown, had his knee on George Floyd's shoulder or back, not on his neck. The autopsy of George Floyd showed that he had no damage to his trachea, that probably George Floyd died of excited delirium. There were no accusations, even at trial, that Derek Chauvin had committed a hate crime against George Floyd or that he targeted George Floyd because of his race. Nonetheless, on the basis of extraordinarily scanty evidence, and despite the fact that there was massive pressure on the jury, that the mayor of Minneapolis paid a settlement to the George Floyd family immediately, that the president of the United States suggested that Derek Chauvin was guilty right off the bat, that the jurors were being openly threatened and admitted as much. Despite all of that, Derek Chauvin was convicted on federal charges and pled guilty to federal charges. Derek Chauvin should, in fact, be pardoned on that. We will be covering that a lot more in coming weeks because I think it is worthwhile to remember that there is a man who is rotting in prison because the media decided in the middle of 2020 that they were going to turn a tragic law enforcement stop that ended with the death of a man who had a significant problem with drugs and pre-existing health problems into the raison d'etre of the entire 2020 election. And it led to vast chaos. It led to, again, the destruction of racial comedy in the United States, $2 billion in property damage, and a guy rotting in prison who the evidence demonstrates certainly was not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
All right, so a few different things on that. Now, first and foremost, I have a lot of suspicion about the fact that the trial being opened up for appeal right after Election Day is something that may, again, I'll put my tinfoil hat back on and say this might have been planned because the unrest will make a great backdrop to say that the country's out of control under Trump again, or come on, you know you want to bring up the Insurrection Act. Ooh, they're protesting. Just all you gotta do is sign the pen or sign the paper, and now the Insurrection Act is invoked, and now you can make all these problems go away. Just turn the military on these protesters. Come on, Donald, you know you want to do it. But with that being said, with Derek Chauvin, now, getting a pardon on him will not get him out of prison. He will not be a free man over that. And that is based on the fact, of course, that the majority of charges that keep him in prison for as long as he is in prison are state charges in the state of Minnesota. The federal charges were just upgrading this into a hate crime above and beyond his regular charges to get him another 10 years into prison. So there's that. The protests, of course, the news media is going to say that if he gets the pardon, he's going to be walking free. And no, he won't be walking free. But that adding to the fuel of the appeal, which he stands a chance of winning, yes, is going to push the protests back out into the streets. I don't think that he was the one that killed George Floyd. But I see an awful lot of things that are awfully convenient about the timing of all this that I have concerns about. Alright, let's finish out the show. We can touch on some of the other stuff at the end of last week. I want to talk a bit about, well, let's start off with how we always do. Let's end on the Ferengi rules of acquisition. Ferengi religion centers highly on commerce. The better you follow these rules of acquisition and interact with other species around the galaxy, the better position that you'll get, the better social credit you'll have to bid on a better life at the end of your life in the Divine Treasury. Every week we look at one of these rules of acquisition. We determine if it was used in Alpha Canon, how it could be, or how it was used in Alpha Canon. If it's used in Beta Canon, I can't answer to that because I haven't read a lot of the books. But in Alpha Canon, I've seen almost all the series. I can see how it's all used. But we also look at how it can be used in real life, or if it was just a criticism of capitalism with, I just wanted to say George Lucas, but that's not it. Gene Roddenberry. I'm losing my geek credit there because I just confused the creator of Star Wars with the creator of Star Trek. Roddenberry was an avowed communist, so yes, having these rules of acquisition could be, or for the most part were, a major critique of both religion and of capitalism. So some of these cannot be used in common life. This one, the 87th rule of acquisition, from DS9 novel Highest Score, which I can't answer to because I've not read. Learn the customer's weakness so that you can better take advantage of him. Now, this is actually a good lesson to be used in regular parlance. However, I would word it differently. Because if you are in business, you theoretically have something that a customer wants or needs, and the customer has a big pile of money that you want. That's why you're in business. So how could you write that better to actually be used in real life? Because yes, you should make sure that you advertise the fact that you have product that customer wants or needs, and that you would like to exchange that for their money. So instead, not learn the customer's weaknesses, but get to know the customer, their wants, needs, and desires, so that you can better cater to their needs. It's the same idea. It's just written in a very anti-capitalistic way. Because Roddenberry was an avowed communist. It's a good rule, it really is. It's just not written in a way that... It's written in a way that would be perceived of as a critique of capitalism, not as a way for you to grow your business. So there you are, your 87th rule of acquisition. Get to know your customer's needs so you can better cater to them. Not learn the customer's weaknesses so you can better take advantage of him. Alright, it was suggested to me, so we're going to do it, that we start with things that I hate and end on things that I like. So we're going to try that for a week. I know that I stole the bit straight from Shapiro. Things I like and things that I hate, because that's what he does, is he starts... But it was also only supposed to be a one-day thing. It wasn't supposed to end every show. Back when Contemporary was a daily thing, that was our Thursday end of the show, because Tuesday was Twitter Trending, Wednesday was Something I'm Thankful For, Monday was Rules of Acquisition, and Friday was Read the Live Chat, when it was a daily show. So, we're going to start, we'll do things that I hate first, and then we'll do things that I like. Here's number one thing that I hate. And I'm kind of glad that this went away. This could qualify as a thing that I like, but this could definitely be a thing that I hate too, because the fact that it was, in fact, incepted. There was a Powerpuff Girls real life show focusing on the Powerpuff Girls as adults. That was planned for the CW. It got canned. And I'm kind of glad that it did, because I looked at the trailer. I didn't think that they were doing it right. I thought that they had kind of the right idea, just they weren't executing it very well, and I've seen the trailer. The trailer has been tagged everywhere. This episode might actually get taken down, and what I'm saying right now might be followed by silence or a muted section or a jump cut, based on the fact that this is there. If you're on the audio platform, this doesn't apply to you, but the trailer for the failed Powerpuff Girls live-action CW reboot that never even made its first pilot. Let's watch it.
Blossom was constantly stressed.
Wait, is it daylight savings?
Buttercup was constantly rebellious.
I'm not wearing that dress anymore. It's gender normative and ass ugly.
And Bubbles was constantly drinking. Go get him! And on one fateful day, the girls made a fatal error, costing Mojo his life. In the wake of disaster, Blossom ran away. Buttercup became a real hero. And Bubbles, well, she made it all the way to Hollywood Boulevard.
Hi! I'm Bubbles.
Everybody wants to talk to fake Jesus. Hi!
In a sweeping reversal of fate, the Powerpuff Girls are beloved again in Townsville.
You're my daughters first, and your happiness is all that matters.
Blossom was constantly stressed.
Wait, is it daylight savings?
Buttercup was
So, my thoughts on this is, I think that they took it too far into the adult realm of Powerpuff Girls, and a part of what made Powerpuff Girls what it was a level of innocence that you had to the superheroes. Like, they were out there fighting crime. To get them this jaded, I think took away from some of the original charm of the Powerpuff Girls. The idea of them as grown-ups, actually, I like the idea. But I don't need to see characters that I enjoyed when as a kid with that, again, that aura of innocence, be full-out jaded adults. I don't think that would work. So, it has failed. I hate the fact that this trailer was made. But I'm glad of the fact that nobody wanted to go pick that up. So, that's a mixed one for me. More things that I hate. Dems launch campaign to buy each black man an AR-15 to scare Republicans into supporting gun control. And what's sad is that actually might work. And I'm from a small town, and I understand some of the mindset that's going to go into this. I think it's great. I don't like the fact that the government's buying it for them, or Democrats are buying it for them. But yes, I think more people should be exercising their Second Amendment rights and First Amendment rights. I do. I want to go hang out and train with these people. I do. I think it'd be pretty fucking cool. The quote with this, of course, when these racist rednecks see video after video of black men shooting assault weapons at the range and carrying them in public, they'll get on the phone immediately and tell their congressperson to support more gun control pronto. Tiffany Pettit. No, they're not Democrats. The ATF with the most tone-deaf tweet of the week. Today we remember and honor the life and service of Special Agents Conway LeBleu, Todd McKeehan, Robert Williams, and Stephen Willis, who were killed attempting to execute warrants. Who remembers their history and can't see it on the screen right now? Where were these 4 special agents? Oh yes, that's right, they were attempting to execute warrants at the Branch Davidian compound in Waco. Yes, this is the Waco incident, where government agents went in and slaughtered women and children. See, it's stuff like this that makes me want more people to exercise their Second Amendment rights. Because when the government decides you've done something wrong, they will kill you. Decca's over on the Video Game Study Lounge chat, and not in our chat. I'm going to tease him about that later. I don't care. He's actually a mod over at there. So, it's part of his job to go back and do that, being a mod, but doesn't mean I'm still not going to rib him. Doesn't mean I'm not going to go fuck with him. Yes, ATF is saying we honor those fallen in one of the worst government massacres in history. You can fuck all the way off with that. Here's one. Now, I'm normally not a doxing person. I think that people who dox are the worst people in the world. I do. But I'm going to tell you right off the bat that this person got what was coming from them. Or coming to her, rather. First off, if you go to a Mexican restaurant and you write, "0 tip, you suck, and I hope Trump deports you," it means that you are surprised at the fact that Mexicans are working at a Mexican restaurant. Now, as far as this goes, on this was a real estate agent who wrote this on a receipt saying no tip, and she hopes that Trump deports the server. But she had her name on there, which in realty, your name is your brand. Because, of course, the card shows the first and last name on there. So your name is your brand. This woman got fired from Century 21 in Ohio over this one because that was a tremendously stupid move. Even if I agreed with the sentiment, which I don't, I would still remind you of the fact that you were this stupid to do this with your brand, your name on the receipt. You are too stupid to work for my company. Even if you take all the racialism out of this, that just shows complete lack of forethought, planning, or common sense. Not somebody I'd like to have on my employee roster or independent contractor roster. Because a real estate agent, let's face it, is an independent contractor. Now, as far as justification for this, I don't necessarily think that she went into this wanting to disparage all people of Hispanic descent. I think that the server, Ricardo, actually was bad at his job that day. I'm pretty sure that that's what happened, because the level of outburst, and again, going to a Mexican restaurant and being surprised to see a Mexican, is just a level of stupidity above and beyond. You get where I'm going with that. So I do think that this was written in anger over a bad experience at the restaurant. I don't necessarily think that this was I'm going to go find me some Mexicans out there and tell them that they're all going to be deported. Everybody in this was in the wrong, and especially the people who went out and doxed this woman as well, because yeah, I'm against doxing. So somebody else in the thread put the full name and address for this person in there. I did report that because that was too far. More things that I hate. California resident is at Lowe's showing electric lawnmowers they have. It's now illegal to sell gas-powered lawnmowers in California. He points out that the price is now 3 times the price for these versus the gas-powered ones that are banned. Which of course is obvious because you have a captive market at this point. Thanks to Newsom, here's your choices of lawnmowers. You get the $6,000 John Deere electric. You get the Ego for $7,000 and another Ego for $6,000. A Craftsman for $6,000, another Craftsman electric for $5,000. They do have one returned gas lawnmower, the only one they can sell since it's returned, which used to be $2,200, but you now pay 3 times as much for a lawnmower. You've got to recharge all the time and you can't even finish your lawn. Now, and again, a part of that is supply and demand. A lot of the people are going to be out there thinking that their lawnmower that's gas that they already own is illegal, so they're going to be running out to go buy the electric one so the neighbors don't go back and tell on them, even though what they already own is grandfathered in. But anybody else who's just buying a home for the first time in California, God help you, or starting a landscape company or a property management company or anything else, is now the captive audience. They need the equipment, and now it's 3 times as much. So, and there's no really used market for it either, because these things only hit the market a few years ago. There is a used market, it's just not really big. So there you go. Beforehand, they had to keep their prices low to compete with gas. That has a huge used market out there, but now they don't have that competition anymore. And I'm positive that Gavin Newsom is not getting kickbacks from that. Speaking of EVs, the left is burning Tesla chargers. Chloe Cole with a take on this one, saying the left is now burning EV chargers. No, only specifically Tesla ones, which just a few years ago they fought to get subsidized. The goal was never fighting climate change, it was always bait and switch for Marxist revolution. Well, no, it's because they hate Elon Musk. They want the chargers there, they just don't want them to be Tesla chargers. I'm gonna skip that one. I want to go into a little bit more depth on this one than time allows right now. And this one too, because I have no confirmation on that one. Alright. So, that's things that I hate. Let's do things that I like. Alright, things that I like. Now that I have been playing the Skyward Sword on the Switch for stream, which I'm having a blast at, by the way. It's hard. There was definitely a learning curve to it, but I'm very happy that I got pressured into playing this game because I'm very, very much enjoying it. It was a good choice. I like it. I like the learning curve. I like the story so far. And I'm actually getting used to the controls a little bit too. The puzzles were great. I liked that. But it also got me playing because I don't want to play ahead while I'm not on stream. I've been playing a little bit of the original Legend of Zelda. And I decided we're going to put the trailer for that on stream. So, without further ado, one of the commercials, not the trailer, for the original Legend of Zelda. It's a bit unhinged, but it was also the 80s.
Watch Zelda become a legend on your Nintendo Entertainment System.
Zelda! After rocks!
Which way to go?
Good times! Peahens!
Levers!
Zelda! Zelda! Zelda!
The Legend of Zelda. A never-ending adventure new for your Nintendo Entertainment System.
Zelda!
That commercial just screamed 1986. It really did. The original is hard, by the way. Holy fuck. You couldn't make a game like that today without having something coming here giving away the process again. That's one of the things I appreciate about Skyward Sword is they actually let me, for the most part, figure it out. They have the hint system if I need it, but like what makes Skyward Sword different over Ocarina is where Fee will come out and say, I have advice for you if you want it. You don't have to come back and take it. With Navi, however, I mean, anybody who's been around my phone already knows the sound. Hey! Listen! Right in the middle of flow. It's okay if you've never played the game before, but if you played it 9 or 10 times, it gets a little bit old because of the fact of, oh, hey, I already know this. Can I skip it? Nope, no skip. And realistically, honestly, with the original Legend of Zelda, and I've gone a little bit for the online stuff on that one too, just based on the fact of it was well known that you couldn't find your way around the original Legend of Zelda unless you got the Nintendo Power subscription. There was no map, there was no nothing. You just went in and searched every screen until you found what you were looking for and hoped you got all the challenges. So, if you haven't tried it, or it's been a while, go pick it back up and try it as an adult. It's definitely interesting, and it'll keep your interest going for a while. Let's see, other things that I like. I've talked about this page before. I'm sure that given the fact that I'm anti-government, well, maybe actually as anti-government, but given the fact that this is a Vermonter with a little bit of I would say the self-reliance thing and the don't need no this and that and possibly commune ideas. I don't know. I've never met the woman. I'd love to actually. I'm going to reach out to this woman and see if I can interview her because I've been using so much of her stuff as starter stuff. But when I started making wine, this was the page where I was getting my starter recipes from. Now I've started to tweak my own stuff. But it's still important to get your quantities in, so this is what I've been working with to figure out how the stuff actually works. I've learned a lot from this page, and now I'm actually looking in it. She's got beers, canning, freeze-drying, home freeze-drying. cheese making. If you're looking to get a start on self-reliance, if you've got a bunch of land where you can plant stuff, or if you can at least get to the farmer's market and get stuff, this is the page for you. It's called Practical Self-Reliance. I don't recommend constantly following the recipes to the letter, but this will give you a starting point to know what your supplies are that you need, where you want to go with how you want your recipes to go, and tips and tricks to know about for stuff that you probably didn't know before. Curing meat. Chamomile wine and mead, by the way. I don't know about that one, but I feel like that would just put you out like that. Maybe I'll have to try that one. I have a grape and a mead going, and the mead is going to go into the thing that I don't want to talk about on YouTube. Yeah, I got to reach out to this person, because this would be a great interview for me, I think. Just because she's helped me move ahead in my self-reliance journey and winemaking and beer making and making of other things that are technically legal but are still being litigated through the Supreme Court right now. Cheese making, though, I never saw that one on there. We'll have to look at that and see what we can do with recipes. Palm, we might make cheese. Yeah, go check that one out. It's great. Alright, a couple other things that I like, and then we're out of here. Kyle Becker trying to put this off as this massive anti-Trump protest on the Capitol. And honestly, there's like 18 people out there. In the nation's capital, where there are constant protests going on and have been since the 60s. If this is the most that you can muster, then your movement's kind of dead. And again, kick the progressives out of your party and start talking about what you can do for the American people, not everything that I hate is evil Donald Trump. And the last one, and again, this goes back to the Ukrainian war stuff, but this is the right sentiment to have. And it's actually bringing up the fact of, yes, there's risk with having the populace armed, but the reward is greater. So Cecilia Glennon over on X, I can't help but wonder if Europeans have the introspection to understand why they became so militarily weak. The US was dragged into 2 European wars, and after the last one decided to rebuild Europe and keep the military bases there. NATO was formed to protect Europe from the USSR and fend off the spread of communism. But US military presence was also a deterrence against intra-European conflict. The US did not want to get dragged into yet another European war. Relieved of much of the need for strong militaries, European countries adopted socialism and a welfare state. I know the S word is easy to bandy around, even though it's not really technically the state of what is going on in Europe. It shows to the common layperson what the level of government programs and social safety nets are, so I'm going to leave it in. They ultimately formed a joint economic and political unit, the EU, which has created a bureaucracy to rival that of the USSR or the US, but with little military might. Europe indulged in the luxury beliefs of open borders and climate catastrophizing, deindustrializing itself and kneecapping their own standard of living. Fact check true so far. I suspect the EU leaders that encouraged Zelensky to reject the minerals deal and to publicly and deliberately bicker with Trump in advance. The obviously coordinated propaganda of identically worded posts in support of Ukraine from nearly every European country was meant to shame Americans into supporting the never-ending financial aid to the Ukraine. It backfired. Americans don't see a rival force in the EU, we see a sense of entitlement and the weakness of countries who have to resort to ex-posts and photo ops to project power. Europeans can't seem to fathom that most Americans are sick and tired of carrying so many dependent countries. Maybe they're getting the hint. And this is the part. The first part of that was the lead up. This is the part where this is the reason this is on the things that I like. So now the EU must urgently rearm. Maybe it's just bravado, maybe they're serious. That means they need to reindustrialize, of course, be self-reliant again, It means they need more energy. It means they have to scale back their welfare state. It means, God forbid, giving up 12-week holidays. It means becoming more productive. It also means civil unrest. Europeans do love their protests, but maybe they'll get that under control. Well, and again, when everybody is armed, you go into the protest with the assumption that everybody is armed. It might just save European countries, but it will also change them and change their people. It might reignite long-standing rivalries and jealousies. It might ultimately lead to another European war. It probably will, by the way. If that happens, the US needs to resist any temptation to get involved. Let them figure it out on their own. And yes, they should rearm. They should stand up. They probably will start to fight, especially if they reindustrialize, because then it'll be a constant resentment over resources, because, I mean, Norway's sitting on one of the biggest oil fields in the Eastern Hemisphere, but they share it freely with the rest of the EU because of their government structure and their strong social safety net, and they run their social safety net off the fact that they have this oil field out there. You know, you've got different rare earth minerals south of the Iron Curtain. You've got strong forests and trees and various different metal mines across north central Europe. And not everybody's going to have equal access to this if they go back and reindustrialize. So yes, there's going to be some fighting, some open belligerence and warfare. But especially if they think that Russia is just going to go bowling over Poland as soon as they take Ukraine. Even though they only seem to be interested in the Donbass, and no matter what, that's all they're going to get. Don't you want your populace to be armed if you think that Russia is going to be on your doorstep in an instant? Those Russian soldiers, if they run into a bunch of ARs or Kalashnikovs, are probably going to think twice about going into the place if they know that it's going to be there. So that's my 2 cents on it. I'd be a little bit wary of getting Europe to rearm just because of the history, but ultimately I think it's going to be for the best. Just like the getting the AR-15 for all the black people, and then Republicans calling for gun control. I think it'd be cool to have more people to go to the range with. I do. So that's what I have for the day. We're out of here. Probably gonna go put this up tomorrow. I do have to sit down and edit out the John episode, but I gotta get something to eat too. I'm hungry. Maybe I'll do that after work. I got a lot of shit to do after work. It was a bit of a wild week this week, but I got a lot of stuff done. My weekend is over. I go back to work tomorrow. Tomorrow's my Monday, even though it's everybody else's Friday. So we'll probably do a little bit after work and get some of this going, but I gotta eat something too, so there's that. Anyway, where's my outro? Where's the outro music? God, that war pig. Shapiro. Alright, well, with that, we are done. We're out of here. A lot of stuff covered this week. I know we got an extra day, and there's probably going to be a shorter episode on Tuesday because we've only got 5 days between them. Who am I kidding? There's so much stupid shit. We can fill 3 hours again. But I do hope to get it tamped down to 2 at some point here. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. It's weird. This is worse than the first Trump presidency, where I could have only an hour and a half show. You realize that. But we're going to head out of here. Thank you so much for coming by, hanging out, watching on the live stream, or if you're catching this on the back end, on YouTube, on replay, on Rumble Replay, and over on Spotify for the audio platform. Thank you so much. Your continued support is fantastic. And yes, sharing this around. I know that we picked up some traction since the Ed Talk stuff came out, so kind of happy to see that. Welcome to all the new people. Thanks so much for hanging out. We'll be back here next week for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Take care. Love you all. I'm glad you're here. I'm trying to filibuster until we get to the last measure that I usually close everything out on. So, take care. Have a fantastic night. Get some food. Go hug your family. And we will see you here next time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Bye-bye.